Okay.
All right, you're live.
All right. So I'm just basically, hey, all right. So send the first one. All right. I don't have anything. Oh, okay. Here it is. All right. First one is what was it like watching Nothing Left to Fear with an audience at the premiere? Um, yeah, the premiere was a lot of fun, but it was really sort of nerve-wracking because having the red carpet and the press and the photographers. Um, it's a lot more tolerable when you're going to somebody else's red carpet event. You can sort of just skirt through it, but when it's your own event, you're sort of stuck there. But it was nice having Zach and John Five and Steve Adler and my wife and some other friends and so on. So it was cool. It's quite the experience. All right, what's the hardest thing you had to do producing Nothing Left to Fear? I think the really the hardest thing to do was to raise the money. I think that was continually the obstacle that we ran into, as a lot of indie movies can attest to. But that was the hardest thing to do. It was definitely pretty taxing, juggling the production schedule with my recording and touring schedule all at the same time. Um, but I think we managed pretty well. But all in all, I don't have any real, what I would call complaints. All right, next one. When will our pledge items ship? They will. Let's see. They will get to fans by December. All right. Yeah, like I just signed a bunch of about 300 CDs just now. You want to slide one down here? So here, wait. Oh fuck. So there. Can you see that? So that's just proof that I've been. We're waiting on the vinyl. That's going to take the longest. We're also waiting on the Blu-rays and the DVDs, but that stuff should be here pretty quickly. So I would say inside of the next couple of weeks, everybody should get what they ordered. Saw the movie last night. Great Q&A, and I want to ask, who is your favorite character in the movie and why? Um, I think Mary is my favorite character just because she's the monster, and Jennifer Stone did such a good job, really getting into that role and more physically than anything because she did a lot of sort of moves, sort of contortions that were seemingly impossible. I think we were all blown away about how flexible she was, but she really absorbed that role. And I think the monster was the key thing in the story that inspired me to take on that particular story, the Nothing Left to Fear script. Let's see. I want to talk about soundtrack. What mood are you to interpret the movie soundtrack? The music really comes from. For me, it started with the script, and it started with directors' storyboards, and I just started to. I think when you read a script, you should have a vision. You should create a visual in your mind, and so this script definitely did that for me. And so I started writing from there. And then when I started getting dailies, when I was on the road, I started writing and recording. And then after they were done shooting and I was taking a break, I was in LA with the scoring composer that I partnered with, and we started actually composing to film, or composing to the reels, and it just sort of came very natural. All right. After all that urban myth of Stull, would you like to play there with conspirators on the next tour? Um, all things considered, one of the key reasons why we didn't shoot there is because they didn't want us to shoot there, and they didn't like the idea of us. sensationalizing Stull by making a movie that was based on their town. Um, but I don't think we really sort of directly um, talked about Stull as far as the things that are infamous over there for being the gateway to hell and all that kind of stuff, the stuff that they were really worried about. We just used Stull sort of as the backdrop with no real details. I don't know if they would have me play there or not. If they're happy at the end of all this, then, it's a possibility. All right. Let's see. How do you feel about the movie finally is official? Glad it's all over. It's the movie's out. It's not all over yet. There's still a lot of um, it's promotional stuff having to do with the DVD and the Blu-ray and all that. But I'm really happy. We basically had a couple $1,000,000 to make this movie. There's a rumor going around that it took 5, which it was half of that, and we did it in 20 days, and I think we did a really good job with the resources that we had, and fortunately we had great actors, and pulled a lot of favors to get the right people to do the special effects and to do the sound and so on. So I say it's all in all it's good. There's still some work going into it, but now we're moving on to the next one. So, all right. First of all, love the movie. Thank you. Would you like to work with the same actors in the next movie? I hadn't really given it that much thought because it depends. Who is going to play in the next movie, who the characters are, really depends on what the story is and what the whole, what the characters are basically, and then who should play them. So we'll see. I mean, I loved working with all of them. I think Ethan Peck was great. Clancy Brown was amazing. Jennifer Stone was amazing. Rebecca Brandes was amazing, and obviously Anne and James were awesome. So it was definitely a pleasure working with all those people. But whether or not they would fit in the next movie is something else altogether. What do you consider a successful movie? A successful movie, this is obviously early on for me, but in my mind, at this point, having done one, is pretty much the same as a successful record where you walk away from it feeling satisfied and happy with what you came up with. It's really not about dollars and cents to me. Of course, that's the icing on the cake if other people get into it and you can sell a couple copies. That sort of tells you that the public is into it as well. But really, it's all about whether you feel like you did the work that you wanted, you got the result that you wanted. That to me is success. All right, how many months did it take to film? It took 20 days. That was it. That's all we had, budget-wise. Favorite scene in Nothing Left to Fear? That's a good one. I'd have to say when Mary first starts turning, that it's really a series of scenes, but that's really exciting for me because that's when the whole movie sort of shifts into a horror movie. Prior to that, it's a lot of sort of story development and getting to know the family, and then everything after that, I mean, I love when Chris is going through the door. I love when Chris and Rebecca are running down the street. I could go on, Slash, from Rockstar to movie producer, is there anything else you want to accomplish? Um, no, I mean, I'm working on a new record right now, and so that's like my first and foremost priority. And then on top of that, looking for another story that's good enough and exciting enough to make another movie. These things just come out of nowhere. I don't really plan ahead, and you start sort of having these ambitions to do things that it just sort of it happens and it seems interesting at the time. Anyway, after Nothing Left to Fear, do you have any plans on next horror movie in the future? I'm talking about new projects with a lot of different people at the moment. I'm getting to know some of the names in the business that are pretty credible, and talking ideas with them, talking ideas with Anthony. There's a lot of different things going on, but I haven't locked on to a particular project yet. All right, how did it feel the first time you saw the finished movie? Well, I mean, the first time I saw it in front of an audience was a very nerve-wracking experience because when you finish, when you complete something that you created, and you have to experience it for the first time with a bunch of people that have no idea what it's about. You can't help but feel a little bit uncomfortable, wondering if they're seeing or understanding the same things that you are. It's definitely it's a lot like playing a record for a group of people in a room, which is something I don't like to do. So seeing it for the first time though was great. In the sense that just seeing it on a really big screen with good sound, it was yeah, I have to admit I felt sort of like a little kid. All right, who did you get the most advice from for the soundtrack? What about the producing side? Anyone mentor you through it? Well, I have to give a lot of credit to the people I worked with. As far as the soundtrack was concerned, it was Nicholas O'Toole, the scoring artist that I worked with, and also Anthony Leonardi, who, although not a musician, had a lot of verbal cues about emotion that he wanted to convey throughout the creation of the score. And so he was really helpful. It was very interesting working in that with that dynamic. And Nicholas was just fantastic because he has a lot of experience doing this. He's really gifted, and he was a great person for me to sort of work side by side with or work in tandem with, to be able to sort of take my ideas and sort of transpose them into orchestral format. And then as far as producing goes, Michael Williams and Rob Eric were the guys that I worked side by side with, who sort of taught me the ropes as we went, especially in the business side of it, which I have absolutely no experience with. But even on the creative side, they really sort of spelled out to me how certain things work and what things cost and stuff like that. So I couldn't have done it without them. Let's see, what about guitar solos on Nothing Left to Fear soundtrack? Are there any? Are they different from your other solos in Slash Release? There's no actual guitar solos on the soundtrack, with the exception of Nothing Left to Fear, the title track that I did with Miles Kennedy. There's a very different kind of guitar solos, or a couple different guitar solos on that song that are very different than anything people will probably be used to hearing from me. Will the Nothing Left to Fear song be part of future set list? That remains to be seen. There's a little talk about it. Miles and I did a couple acoustic versions of it recently, and it's pretty cool. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing a band version of it, because the soundtrack version is just guitar and vocals, and I like it like that. But I also hear a section in the song where drums might come in. So we'll see. We'll see. It's hard to say yet. Which is your favorite song on the soundtrack? Well, there's a piece of music on the soundtrack which is sort of a compilation of different elements in the film called "Welcome to Stull," and that pretty much sort of is indicative of the whole movie. It's got a lot of different parts of the whole movie, but it works really well as one composition. And I was using it for the intro music on the tour all of this summer. This past summer, anyway. Do you appear in the movie at all? Would you do a cameo in your own movie in the future, possibly? I'm not in this movie. There was no place in this movie for me to do a cameo that would have fit, and it wasn't really something that we thought about. But if it called for it, where maybe there was a band playing, or I don't know, if it was appropriate, yeah, I might do it. But it's really not a priority with me. It really depends on what the script calls for, and what kind of vibe that's all about. How much do you listen back to the songs you write? A lot. The most I ever listen to any music that I record is in the writing process. After it's released, I never really listen to it again. But yeah, when you're writing, you have to listen back to what you're doing to see if you like what you just wrote, or if you're writing arrangements. And when you're in the studio recording, you have to listen back to stuff all throughout the process, and then you have to mix it, which is all about listening back and mastering it. So you listen to stuff probably more than you could possibly want to, but it's part of the gig. What movies and directors inspired you when making this movie? I didn't directly, as it relates to this film, I didn't watch any movies for inspiration. I just sort of, at the point when we're making the movie, just like making a record, at that point you just have to go with what you know. You don't want to be watching something else too closely because you don't want to borrow anything that or subconsciously. Um, but I mean, there was a lot of movies that I've been influenced by throughout my entire life that probably had a lot of inspiration on making this movie. What is your favorite horror movie or non-horror movie of all time, and how did it inspire you for the project, if at all? Um, I have a lot of favorite movies. When it comes to horror, I think Night of the Living Dead, The Exorcist, The Omen, The Thing, Jaws, Alien, Rosemary's Baby, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, the original Dracula, or at least Bram Stoker's Dracula with Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney's Werewolf. I mean, I could go on. There's so many great horror movies that are singled out to me as being phenomenal, that probably had more of a subliminal influence on what I wanted to do with this picture. How long did the soundtrack take to compose? Was it done after the film was done? I started composing for the soundtrack before we even went into production. That's the sort of the advantage of being a producer and a musician, is that you can get into the music early on. But after the movie was filmed is when we really sort of tied it all into tied it all into the movie, and timed everything out and so on. So, and how long it took? It probably took altogether roughly about inside of 2 months to do the whole score. What was the biggest challenge in the production process? Somebody asked me that before. It's, patience is a big challenge. I forgot about that, because the development of a movie is very, very, very slow. A lot of waiting around, and I'm really, really happy that I have the day job that I have that kept me busy while I was waiting for things to happen. But I mean, really, the hardest part is getting the money together to actually make the movie. Do you have a movie that you hate that you love? Guilty pleasure movie. Um, I've been asked that a lot, and I haven't been able to come up with anything. Um, I think probably my guiltiest pleasure is watching a lot of cartoons like Adventure Time and uh, uh, the regular show and SpongeBob, stuff like that. That's probably my guiltiest pleasure. Have Lennon and Cash seen the film? No, I haven't let them see it. They like scary stuff, but I don't want to take them into a theater where they're sort of on lockdown, having to sit through something that's freaking them out. And also, Chris gets killed in it, and he's 10 years old, which is basically the same age as they are. And even though they don't have a sister that would kill him, I just don't think they want that in their head. So no. Let's see. As I know you like zombies, would you be interested in making a film about them? God, zombies have been pretty played out. Uh, I think zombies and vampires have really been sort of maxed out at this point. It would have to be a really, really unique take on zombies for me to go, yeah, this is something that I want to do. I love zombies, but there's so many zombie movies over the years. It's probably more zombie movies than anything else. And then next is vampires. So I'm definitely into getting into monsters. So that's my big thing right now, is to look for some really original monster stories. Let's see, tell us about other movie scripts that you considered before choosing Nothing Left to Fear. Were you looking for anything specific? When I first started out looking at scripts, there was a hell of a lot of them, and I was really, uh, you know, looking for anything that just was well written, and and a really good story, and believable characters and so on. I don't know if I had a specific style of the genre that I was looking for. I was just looking for something good. And there was a great Steve Niles story that I really did want to do. It was a little bit expensive budget-wise, but it was a great story. But unfortunately, they had so much baggage with it because it had been around for a while. It was just didn't seem possible to make it. But yeah, there was a couple interesting scripts, but that one stuck out in my mind. Steve Niles is just phenomenal anyway. All right. Any theater releases planned for the rest of the world? I think everything for foreign is going to be. foreign if you're living in domestic. And anyway, so anything that's going to be going to Europe, Australia, Japan, UK, that kind of stuff, is probably going to be next year from the looks of it. So that's the best answers I can give at this point. Did Duff like the movie? Yes, Duff was very complimentary about the movie last night. It was actually to the point where I was, I was like blushing, But he really dug it, and he really came down to see what I was doing, but also most importantly, he brought May, who's a big horror movie, and apparently she really liked it, and Susan liked it. So it was nice to have them down there and see what they thought. Will the acoustic version of Nothing Left to Fear be from Conan be on the DVD release? No, the DVD was already set in motion before we recorded that. Would you consider releasing the acoustic version anywhere in the future? I mean, it really sort of depends. It's sort of nice just having the couple versions out there on YouTube or whatever. And it's a very relaxed environment with no pressure of having to make a perfect recorded version. But then again, you never know. We might do one while we're recording something else and throw it in there. It'll definitely become part of our acoustic sets whenever we do those. Was Miles going for that Tom York tone because it's right on another? Not that I know of. That never even occurred to me. But that's interesting. Are you into comic books at all? I like graphic novels. It's mostly horror-related graphic novels or X-rated ones. I'm not really much of a, like a Marvel Comics guy or a lot of that other stuff. But I always loved Crumb when I was a kid. So some of the real crazy stuff I really dig. But conventional comics, not really. Oh, so okay. Would I ever consider writing my own script for film? I might if I can't find the story that I want to would be typical of my personality to decide, well, fuck it, you know what, I'm just gonna write it myself. So you never know. Let's see. What about dinosaurs? Would you like to make a film about them? Did you like Jurassic Park? Of course, I love Jurassic Park, and can't wait for the next one. Would I like to make a film about dinosaurs? It's a difficult medium to get into, sort of dinosaur movies, because a lot of the classic Harryhausen stuff from back in the day was amazing then. The same kind of stories, I don't know if they necessarily work uh, in this particular day and age. And I think Jurassic Park made it sort of difficult to raise the bar on dinosaur movies so high that it seems like a, a difficult thing to try and not be compared to Jurassic Park, because it seems like every dinosaur movie that's come out since Jurassic Park has been compared to Jurassic Park. But like as never say never. Did you plan for the movie soundtrack to be released around Halloween? Well, it was going to be released at some point around either October or November, so it made sense timing-wise just to release it in October, since Halloween is there and it's my favorite holiday and it's appropriate. Have I seen World War Z yet, and what did you think of it? I actually did see World War Z, and I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, yet another take on the sort of zombie concept, but I enjoyed that movie. Were there any unusual experiences while you were shooting, or did you guys not shoot and stall? No, we weren't able to shoot and stall, but I am going to go there and visit it at some point, as I know a lot of other people had, just to see um, what they pick up from actually being there in person. But no, we haven't had any bizarre experiences. The only thing that I've been noticing is every time I tweet about Stull, I get all these weird characters and that come out on the other end for some reason. And that's the only time. Everything else I post is normal, and I write about Stull and it comes out all fucked up. All right, how did you choose the art for the final poster? Who made the final art? The final art for the poster was actually Anchor Bay. It was not what Anthony and I, wanted to use, but that's what Anchor Bay wanted to use, and we went back and forth tweaking a little bit here and there. So that's really an Anchor Bay thing. And when it comes out in Europe, it's going to have a different poster, which is going to be put together by content that we've been looking at. Anthony and I basically put all the artwork that we wanted to use in the pledge packages, like on the DVD, and or not the DVD, the CD, and on the vinyl. Let's see, what's the next one? Did you ever lose your cool when producing Nothing Left to Fear? In my own way, yeah, many times. It can be frustrating. Nothing Left to Fear was definitely a movie that faced every possible obstacle, and there were so many occasions when it could not have been. We could have just said, "Screw it! It's too complicated to get over these hurdles." But because everybody involved was so passionate about it and persevered, we actually managed to get it made. So along the way, yeah, there was definitely moments of grave frustration. Would you ever make Nothing Left to Fear into a book? Um, really, that's the first time that's been mentioned to me. I just the concept of what Nothing Left to Fear is about, or what it stems from, which is the whole gateway to hell kind of thing, and this community that harbors this very horrific secret. I mean, this story is just one instance. So there's a prequel, and there's a sequel to all this that could be really interesting. And if I can get the financing, I would love to do another film sort of based on a more broader idea of what it's all about. As far as a book is concerned, it might be an interesting idea. Were you scared by Nothing Left to Fear yourself? Did it make you jump at all when you watched it for the first time? There's parts in Nothing Left to Fear that made me jump when we were doing the scoring, when we first started getting, finished edits and sitting down, and there would be parts that would come up that would get me every single time. And yeah, and watching the film when it's finished as well. All right, anything you can share about your next record with Miles and the Conspirators? All I can say is that we're Miles and I are knee deep in writing right now, and I start pre-production with Todd and Brent next week, and I think it's going to be really awesome. That's all I can tell you. It's going to be a rockin' record, but I think we only touched the surface or scratched